Hello everyone, welcome to my first video tutorial. I would like to talk a little bit about my personal project. It's a Russian Mi-24 helicopter. Keep in mind it is very work in progress. As you can see here, a lot of parts are still missing. But there's also a lot we can talk about already. There's quite some stuff done already. So this is how it looks so far from all the directions. So one of the most important things is when you pick a topic like this, is not like just open Max and start modeling. You need to do some research and you have to do it the right way, otherwise it's only going to end up in frustration. When it comes to like helicopters or airplanes or so, like this one for example is out like in service like the 70s or whatever, so there are like some 50 different versions and research can become quite confusing. So it helps to just go to Wikipedia and read a little bit about it, so you know that like you're doing the Hind D version, and then you know what to look for in the reference material you're looking for. So once you decided like what version you want to do, which one to focus on, the next thing is usually getting some blueprints. And here's the thing, these are usually the blueprints we know. They're available everywhere online, but they're not very precise. If you would line these up, the front, in this case the back view wouldn't line up with the side view, which doesn't line up with the bottom view, and this just leads to a lot of confusion where to place parts and which dimensions they should have. So what I do is, yes, I use these blueprints to get at least a start shape right, and then I'm looking for long lens photos that were shot directly from the side, and if they're not available, in this case I just drove to the real bird and shot them by myself. So you're gonna end up with a photo like, let's say you shot it from the side, it's gonna look like this, and yes, there will be some perspective distortion in it, but that's okay, because for sure you're gonna get the proportions and the positions right, like where exactly is the wing mounted, where exactly is the shape of the exhaust and the cockpit, for example, which was really tricky to figure out on this guy. Another thing I'm doing is when you model, let's say, the rear landing gear, it can take quite some time to figure out how exactly the mechanics work. What I simply do is I take every picture I find online and I just make a 4K image and put them in there, have that on the second display, and that way you always see everything from every angle right away. There's no going through folders, finding the right picture again, and so on. And this also helps a lot with understanding complex parts of machinery, like the main rotor. Like the first time you see this, it's gonna be like, oh my god, how am I ever gonna do this? But when you have a closer look at it, it's basically 5 times for each rotor blade. It's 5 times the same mechanics, so you're down to a fifth of the work you have to do. And what I also do is, for understanding how it works, is I simply color code the different parts of the system. Like the red part, then the green parts are the struts, the blue parts go to each rotor blade, and that way it is way easier to understand this thing, and then you have it modeled in a way that you actually are able to rig it later. Alright, but all of this is only important when you want to create something really high-res with a lot of detail, and if you want to follow a certain degree of accuracy. Like sometimes when you do stuff for a production feature or cinematic, it might be overdone to do all of these things, But as this is a personal project and I love aviation related stuff, I went down the path and did everything as it is built for real. Alright, back to the model. So one thing I stumbled upon a couple of times, a mistake some beginners do, is they try to model this big complex machine out of one single part, like as it would be made out of one piece of chocolate. So for example, if you look at the cockpit struts here, obviously they're single objects because on the real bird this thing is made out of like 100,000 parts or whatever. So they try to model everything here as if it would be carved out of one single piece. Please do not do that. It's all different parts. Just don't make your life trickier than it is. It will always end up in a nightmare. It will never look good. You will always have dents and tons of edge loops. It's just not the right way to do it. So why I'm bringing this up is even in my job as a CG model supervisor, I stumbled upon this where someone started modeling a machine that way. So yeah, please don't do that. A question I get asked many times, which surprises me, is how do you start such a big thing? Actually, it doesn't matter. I started with the wing just because I wanted to, and it's supposed to be fun. It's a personal project, so it's fine. Because in the factory where they build these things, all these different parts get built by different teams at the same time, and then at the assembly line they just attach this wing to the fuselage, and that's it. So I started with the wing, then I did the tail rotor just because I wanted to, and then I started modeling some cockpit instruments, like the stuff you see here, all these little bits and pieces. And then at one point I was in the mood to start the fuselage and went from there. So feel free, whatever you want to do. It's supposed to be fun. There are no set in stone rules, except don't model everything out of one piece, please. Also, if you don't model everything out of one piece, it's fairly easy to do all these different panels. I do the start shape out of one mesh, and then I simply cut it up into pieces, like this one here. So that's one piece, that is one piece, this is one. And once I have these panels isolated, sometimes you have to clean them up a little bit. I simply put a shell modifier on it. This panel goes like some 3 millimeters outwards. It's some armor to protect the pilots. Insert extra edge loops to stop the smoothing, get the hard edge. I delete the inside because we don't need that, and then this panel is done. And that's the way the whole helicopter was built. It's really just the same procedure over and over and over again. Like every part is modeled that way. There's just no difference. I think in the end it's more a game of patience, how dedicated you are with this, and once you spend some time on it, you will automatically end up with something like this. So that's also the same way how I did the tail boom. It's fairly simple. You just have your base mesh, which looks like a squeezed cylinder. I split it up into these panels, and then I apply the shell modifier on it to get the thickness of the panels, delete the inside. Again, we don't need that. And that's it basically. Alright, so that's it for today. A quick overview about my Mi-24. If you find this kind of stuff interesting, and if you would like to see me covering the texturing process, or how to do the texture shoot, how to do the shading and lighting, please let me know in the comments, and we'll set up the next lessons. Thank you very much. Bye.